22nd president.
It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be in this position.
He'll take over July 1st, succeeding Jonathan Holloway. Tate will lead over 69,000 students and a $5 billion budget during a time of deep spending cuts and pressure to scale back DEI programs. Court is adjourned in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering trial. Testimony came from Cassie's mother, a federal agent, and a male exotic dancer. Earlier, Diddy's assistant said Cassie felt trapped due to his control over her career. Rapper Kid Cudi is expected to testify this week. And Louisiana lawmakers passed a bill banning diversity programs in state agencies and public colleges, a key part of Governor Jeff Landry's agenda. 10 black lawmakers opposed it, with Rep. Candace Newell calling it the most racially oppressive bill she's seen. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
It's now time for Let's Elevate, the Arnie Cary Show with Arnie Filko and Cary Grant.
All right, good evening, New Orleans. Hope everybody is doing well on this really beautiful day, hot day. Little rain tomorrow. We could probably use that a little bit, but really, all in all, a really nice day. And as we're going to talk about tonight, wow, some 4 days here. It's since early morning hours on Friday all the way to today and beyond. You know, we've been dealing with, the sheriff's situation and, the prisoner escape, and we're going to talk about that tonight some more. So we really would love to hear from you. 504-582-9422. As I say all the time, the show is so much better when you call in and join us. And I am honored tonight because my regular co-host, is in New York City. With a very positive family event that they're celebrating for the next couple days. I think Cary will be back on Thursday. But in the meantime, I get the honor of having Kalisha, God, I have this hard problem, Kalisha Garrett here with us in studio. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Arnie. I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon.
Well, this is one of my favorite people. Got to know her a little bit on city council when she worked with council member Palmer. And did a phenomenal job. I'm going to have to give you a little bit of an introduction. Kalisha has an MBA and is the Chief Operating Officer and Vice President of the Louisiana Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Has over 20 years of experience in different business operations, management, executive leadership, and many other things. Including diversity and inclusion, creating opportunities, and also worked for a company we know here, which is Harris and now Caesars.
Yes.
Was the part of the supplier diversity management team for Caesars, and also the DBE regulatory compliance and community relations manager for Harris.
Yes.
So really, when you boil it all down, a career of really trying to create opportunities for people, right?
Absolutely. Always looking for an opportunity to, one, share information, because oftentimes most of our businesses are not able to identify where to go in order to participate in an opportunity, or what they need to have in order to do so. So I think education and preparation are two of the ways that we can help our local business community, and that's something that we've strived to do. And I've done it for decades now and still continue to do it with the Chamber Foundation, just under a different definition, but still building that core group of our small business owners, because small business is the backbone of the economy, and it drives the economy of Louisiana. And as does small business, so does Louisiana Go. So we definitely want to make sure that we are providing opportunities and access, and ensuring that just understanding where industry is going and what those opportunities are is half of the battle, and the other half is just connectivity, just getting them to the people that they need to speak with.
Absolutely. Business is all part of networking and relationships.
It is relationship driven.
And I have seen you in action, and all honesty, we want to recruit Kalisha to be part of this radio show. Cary and I are going to be moving about all during the
Yes.
summer. I know we got some travel, so we'll see. And, this is recruiting. I've got to show that this is a good show that you might enjoy being on.
And I think you have some experience in recruiting, so
yes,
I'm
I
going to
do.
go with that.
Mr. Elmore, hold on just for 1 second. I'm going to get to you. I just want to mention we lost a great leader, in my opinion, yesterday, Jay Batt,
Yes.
who at a very young age of 64 passed away in his sleep on Sunday night. Jay served on the city council, represented District A from 2002 to 2006. And I got to know Jay when I moved to the city, and then as I ran for office myself. We were never on the same council, but he was a very decent human being, a very
Absolutely.
affable guy. He was the only Republican on the city council, which is not easy in New Orleans, representing District A. And again, just not only a great leader, but somebody you could talk to, somebody that would listen, a very nice person. And we're going to miss people like that.
Absolutely.
In such a divisive environment that we have right now.
Absolutely.
So my hearts and prayers go out to Jay and his family, and, may he rest in peace.
Absolutely.
All right. We have a caller. See if I can get you. Mr. Elmore, you there?
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
I am good. Good evening. How you doing tonight?
Oh, pretty good. And good evening, young lady.
Hi, good
pleasure
evening.
to hear from you also. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
It's a pleasure. Look, the comment I want to make, oh boy, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. Sometimes a bullseye, everybody's on you, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Guess where I'm gonna put the bullseye on? Don't laugh. Safety and permits.
Okay. Elaborate
Let
on
me
that
tell
a
you
little
why I
bit.
said it. Let me tell you why I'm going with that. If you understand when you were in position, and man, you was involved in a lot of issues. I'm sure you was involved in buildings at all when it deals with contractors, general contractors, and who was involved in city government buildings. Well, you know for a fact, I know you know that when a building is built, a building, a prison building, and a commercial residential building and hospitals, they got to be built under certain specifications. You know that. So I'm just dying. I'm just dying. The specifications, you know what, inspected that building to make sure it met the specifications for a prison. Because you can't build a building like that, like you build a hotel, motel, hospital, mall. You got to build like a prison. So I'm just curious, who was overseeing that project? And they need to, I swear, Ernie, how I'm saying it, they need to, whip the architects that was involved in that building. I know they got to be squirming in their toes right now, because that's where you need to be looking at also. Safety permits. Who inspected that building? Who had the gall to say that those walls met specifications for prison?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. And not does it make sense. It's funny because before the show started, Kalisha and I were sitting and talking about different things. And this is exactly the point, Kalisha, you made.
It's exactly the point that I made. And I stated that, at the time, the materials, it's a safety concern and it's a building. So we absolutely should be looking at the construction of the building. But to your point, the inspection and approval of the construction should have mandated certain code for security purposes. We can't have one layer of sheetrock that is residentially zoned to be placed inside of a building, and not saying that's what it was, but from what was depicted in the video, it doesn't seem as if there was that much of a security layer in between the walls of the facility. And I think that is an issue, particularly if individuals are left to during a time frame where they would have the opportunity to be able to make that type of intrusion into a sitting wall.
Right. And in case people didn't hear today, they have arrested an individual, and that person arrested was responsible by his own admission. Now, he said it was under duress, okay? But he turned off the water, making it much easier when they're hammering and trying to break through that fairly thin wall. They were successful in doing so. But I think, Mr. Elmo, I think it's a legitimate point. Again, there's a lot of points. We're going to try to cover them, some of them tonight. There's a lot of issues that are outstanding.
Ernie, I'm sorry. The reason why I'm bringing it. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. The
go
reason
ahead,
why.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, sir. The reason why I'm bringing it up, I'm a plant engineer by trade.
Mm-hmm.
I was a mechanic prior to being a licensed engineer, so I'm familiar how buildings are built. And I was saying, like, you mean to tell me you build that you didn't put no balls in between layers? I mean, look at to me, who the architects need to deal with, and please forgive me, the general contractors, the subcontract, the mechanical people need to be questioned. I mean, I would bring everybody but the corporate woman that was involved in that building, because something don't look right, don't smell right, it stinks.
Well, it was pretty amazing when you watch the video.
Correct.
That they could break through, and all of a sudden they're at the loading dock.
Correct.
And 10 seconds later, they're running
on
across an interstate.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there's a lot of questions, design, construction being one of them. But, Mr. Elmore, thank you. I appreciate it. Keep listening tonight. We're going to try to break down some of this stuff.
Man, well, look, I called because normally I talk politics, but the fact that I'm talking about something that I'm familiar with because of what I do, I think I'd make a comment,
Well,
Absolutely.
Thank
we
you
appreciate
so much.
it. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Take care. So what I want to do, Kalisha, is talk about the substance, because there's 4 or 5 issues, I think. Hold on. There we go. But I want to start, I think, with the response.
Correct.
Because what has happened the last 4 days is so typical New Orleans to me. And it reminds me, to be honest, of January 1. You had a major incident, a terrible terrorism attack here. We didn't know all the facts. And literally press conferences are being held on New Year's morning. People are pointing fingers. They're creating statements that are not factually based yet. And I looked at what's happened here since Friday. I mean, first of all, Friday we had multiple press conferences. You had a sheriff having a press conference. You had the police chief having a press conference. You had Sunday night the governor doing a press conference. City council today took up in committee the issue. And look, we got to do better as a city. I'm not suggesting that anybody's innocent here. Facts are going to come out. We're going to get to know the real facts of what occurred. But the fact is even before anything has happened, we still got 6 people on the loose here.
Correct.
Which really should be the number
priority.
1, 2, and 3 priority. Because, look, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but if I'm one of the family members in one of these cases, I'm very scared, okay? I read about the prosecutors have moved out of the city.
Correct.
Because they're concerned. That's legitimate, but I'm even thinking more about family members. So it's just the way we do things. And, we do this nationally as well. This isn't just a New Orleans issue.
It's not. And oftentimes we do need to take a moment to stop and pause. And I think priority should be focused on identifying where the subjects are and returning them into a secured environment so that they are not able to further harm new individuals while trying to evade the law, right? And I think that the focus should be there while identifying what led up to the circumstances for their ability to be able to escape. And what we do right now is, because we're in a rapid environment and everybody wants to have a 15-second recap that can go viral and have the ability to be the first to the table to say something, we're not actually looking at the causality around what happened. And again, understanding fully what has taken place. And I like what happened from the January 1 situation when they got around to having a command center and started to understand the pieces and what the process was up to what happened. And I think that unfortunately, when certain people say certain things, it's held with a heavier weight than would be with individuals that may not be in the same class or stature. And that is not always the best thing to do, because people will formulate an opinion based on a statement that, again, is not based in fact, but just supposition of what you think occurred or what may have occurred, and what we were just talking about, which is something that is objective. It's a structural building where there had to have been some ability to be able to penetrate a wall that should have been impenetrable. So like
Right.
there's an issue there, right? But pointing fingers and trying to substitute a blame game is not the way that we're going to be able to identify best practices and solutions to ensure that this does not happen again. And I think that the family is more concerned with making sure that those individuals are off of the street
Absolutely.
and back into custody. And
Yes.
so that priority should be focused on ensuring that we are able to do that, to give peace of mind to the family, to those individuals that had the courage to come up and stand as witnesses and participate in the process that led to the convictions. And then again, yes, we may need to look at how they are housed, where they are housed, the situations or the facilities in which they are housed. But right now, we have 6 people that are still at large that have knowingly committed crimes to the point to where they were being retained so that they can either stand trial or awaiting sentencing.
Right.
So that's an issue.
And this is me saying this, Kalisha. I'm not putting these words in your mouth, but to me, there's a lot of grandstanding that always takes place in situations like this.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have, again, whether it's right, wrong, I'm not saying the investigation is not improper because we got to do better as a community, but it seems like the governor is always trying to, throw something negative on the city of New Orleans, whether it be the DA, whether it be the sheriff, whether it is, again, for reasons that don't need to exist, okay? The governor is the governor of the entire state, including New Orleans, okay? You have, you and I are personal friends of the sheriff. I like the sheriff a lot, personally. I've tried to help her on some different things. She made a mistake Friday night when she ended her press conference and said, there's things that haven't come out and maybe that this could be part of the political, opposition. I'm just going to be honest. When I heard that, now, if it's true, it would be one of the worst scandals in the history of our city. But it seems rather far-fetched. And why interject that at a time when, to be honest, people are very scared, because you have people on the lam, that people are nervous about. So there were mistakes going around from PR stand, a communication standpoint. But I'll just kind of end this segment of it, which is, let's come together, okay? This is a city that has gone through a lot of adversity. We went through Katrina. We've gone through COVID together. When we stick together, we are a really efficient city.
Exactly.
And I don't think the last few days has really represented us very well, either locally or as I got calls from family around the country, nationally as well, that are watching this.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I was pushing back on actually having people understand how the weight of the comments that they make and the impact, how it reverberates across the world. New Orleans, people know New Orleans. When you travel and you say you're from Louisiana, they're like, okay, but when you say you're from New Orleans, they're like, oh, I want to go there, or I've been there. So we are world renowned, and we have a reputation of a place where people want to come. And so I think that for us, for this city, and the way the city will lead the state, for this city, we have to be extremely cautious as it relates to jumping the gun, assuming what has happened, and have the opportunity to go through what actually occurred and hold those accountable. Like, let's have accountability and let's have swift actions regarding the accountability, but not assumptions.
That's exactly right. And let's not let the political season intersect with
Fire, yes.
I mean,
the
I know
fire.
that's easy to say. The reality is this: come fall, the voters will have their say.
Exactly.
They're going to decide who should be the sheriff. They're going to decide who should be the mayor or the council person at large, whatever
Absolutely.
the office is. I have confidence in the public, okay? I don't think we need to be slamming people right now at the end of May. What we need to be doing is 2 things, though, and then we're going to go to a break. Catch the people,
Absolutely.
number 1, and number 2, really break down what occurred here so that we can understand, not to cast blame, but to remedy it so
we can
these
fix the
situations
solution.
never exist again.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to go to a break. Again, we'd love to hear from you, 504-582-9422. talk about this topic or anything else you'd like, we've got some other things we may get to tonight.
Yep.
But love to hear from you. We'll be back in just a minute.
That's right. It's party time each and every Sunday night at 7 p.m. on WBOK. It's the Throwback Throwdown with DJ Wick as he brings you the best in old school from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the early 2Ks. Plus, the party goes to another level at 9 p.m. with the Throwback Throwdown Party Mix to round out the night. It's the Throwback Throwdown Sunday nights at 7 p.m. on WBOK and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Missed a show? Want to hear that guest everyone's talking about? WBOK is now streaming on all your favorite podcast apps. Just search WBOK Media, hit download, share with a friend, and don't forget to rate your favorite shows 5 stars. Because when our voices are heard, our impact grows.
On Auto Trends with JeffCars.com, here's a snippet of some of what we cover. GPS pioneer Gladys West.
We worked long hours computing trajectory orbits and satellite orbits, trying to get the data and everything correct enough.
Auto analyst Mark Bland.
14 new vehicle deals that happen in this country out of every 100 that women don't have a fingerprint on.
To tune in, check out Auto Trends with JeffCars.com, Saturdays at 4 p.m. on WBOK, what New Orleans is talking about.
Attention, WBOK listeners. Are you a fan of the station and want to show your support and style? Well, we've got some exciting news for you. Introducing the official WBOK merchandise, the perfect way to wear your love for the station. Whether you're a longtime listener or a new fan, we've got something for everyone. Head to WBOK1230.com now and grab your WBOK gear before it's gone. When you buy WBOK merch, you're not just getting quality items, you're supporting the station you love.
WBOK, online at WBOK1230.com. The Arnie and Cary Show with Arnie Philco and Cary Grant.
All right, we are back, 6:22, and we are talking about the prison jailbreak. I guess I shouldn't have used the word prison. I guess jail, I was told today, is the better term.
Yes.
But the jailbreak, and I'm joined by my co-host tonight, Kalisha Garrett. It's nice to have you, Kalisha.
Absolutely.
So let's try to break down the substance a little bit. So, you know, this thing occurred around 1 a.m. on Friday.
Yep.
We've seen the videos of them trying to break into one cell, a couple of the inmates.
Yep.
Okay. And apparently there is video capability, but the person that either would be physically watching it or watching the video had taken a breakfast break.
Yes.
Okay, so there was no one. So to me, that was the first thing is if you're going to have people walk around and watch the cells, again, you're not going to wake prisoners up in the middle of the night, but just kind of look, do a head count, visual head count. If there is video, which, as I understand, they have a video system. I mean, somebody should be watching video of the different pods. How could you, number one, have a system where somebody leaves their post, basically, and for whatever, half hour, an hour, I don't know what it was, there's nobody doing any of that?
But I think that is still, I guess, unknown to this point is if there is video capability to record the area and to see them physically leave out and see them physically run across the interstate, internally within the system, there should have been some type of an alarm that would have went off, or you had movement that should have been tracked. So it's all, again, looking at what exactly is being utilized to provide the security, the extra visibility within the facility. But to your point, on a staffing side, we have been hearing that in some of the interviews as it relates to short staff or not having enough staff in place or adequate staff in place, what that looks like and where we are as a community with regards to that type of employment and making sure that we have people that have the skill set and the intuitiveness to be able to actually monitor. But the part that is just a little bit just, it doesn't make a lot of sense as it relates to the timing is the break versus the notification of the prison escape, right? And there was such a long period of time in between those two things where the question is just being asked, and it's a regular question. Did no one see that they were not there? Or are there checks for the inmates? Do you make rounds on them? These are unknowns, and they may very well be a part of the procedure. But then at that point, do you have enough staff in order to do that? Is it something that would have been warranted in that area, or do you only rely on having the video surveillance as a backup? And so,
well, I think sticking on the employment aspect of it first, I mean, literally, it seems like between 1 o'clock and when they first serve food, which I heard today was at different mornings, somewhere around 5 o'clock could be the earliest. There was a 4-hour gap in there where nothing was happening.
Exactly.
Nobody was monitoring. Nobody was seeing it. And then, of course, go forward because they really did not discover this until about 8 o'clock. Sheriff was informed a half hour later.
Correct.
And then the public and the media, like mid-morning, 10:30-ish.
Correct.
I mean, that's a 9-hour gap between breakout and the public being aware. Now, again, where there should be outrage is the potential danger that could occur to the public. Okay,
during that period of time,
yeah, I mean,
they could have been to Houston and beyond, but as we see, they chose to stay within the vicinity, which heightens the concern as it relates to injuring or committing an act against someone else that's local. And I mean, this 1 to 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. time frame, or at most 8:30 a.m. Even when you're putting towards amendments, as the representatives are attempting to do, to notify the public within 15 minutes of a break, if we look at the time frame that this happened, that still would not have helped. You have hours. That's enough time to get 2 states over before the public was notified.
Yeah.
And so that's also enough time during an overnight episode for someone, if they wanted to retaliate against someone, to have the opportunity to do so.
No question.
And I think that's where the fear is with the general community. And I think that's why the priority is to apprehend the individuals that are out.
Had there been a system in place where you had notice right away, you would have almost been able to put out what's similar to an Amber Alert.
Correct.
So that the community knows what's going on. They can take precautions. I want to come back to your point about an alarm type of system, because that's very interesting. Listen, we have a caller, Piper, on line 1. Piper?
Hey, good evening. How's it going today?
Good evening. How you doing?
Doing well. And I'm going to piggyback off of the alarm issue as well, because I think if the jail is understaffed, it's underfunded, understaffed, you have to think about where your risks are and then put in mitigation strategies. And like I said, the alarms, like on the other side of that wall, there should have been motion detectors, even on both sides of the wall. So if there's any type of motion, there's some type of an alarm that goes off. And even if I step away from the video monitor, when I return, I'll still see I'm getting registered of some type of alarm. I think most people now have Ring cameras, and you have to hit the button to turn it off, or that little alert is still going to stay on your phone or something. So, and it's hindsight, it's 2020, but you have to be risk, do risk assessments and say, okay, what can go wrong? We have this, we have the wall, there's the fence. Okay, what if they get on the other side of the wall? How can we track? So those type of things that like I say, now I'm more than sure the sheriff and everyone else is thinking about, all of the different mitigation strategies with the what ifs. But I think the key is some type of motion sensor. So when you are away, because if you're understaffed, you're not going to see everything. You're not going to see everything, but there should be some type of alert for the things that's in your blind spot so that you miss.
I think it's great. Yeah, Piper, I think it's a great point. And I'm glad we're talking solutions as opposed to just blame here. But, Kalisha, let me, to Piper's point here, obviously they had video because when they went and escaped on the dock in the back, And then across the interstate, they filmed all that. The
Correct.
cameras caught problem was nobody was monitoring the cameras.
Correct.
But if you would have had some kind of motion device or alarm system, think about it. It would have started when you shimmied open the jail cell.
Correct.
Then when you broke through the wall. Mm-hmm. Then when you went to the dock. And then even when you had to get across the barbed wire, there could have been something there. There were literally 4 places where an alarm could have gone off.
And they're deterrents, but at what level? What they have shown us is that it's not enough, clearly, and particularly not for this type of inmate. And so I think that we really need to evaluate, and risk mitigation is the way to go. But in building and design, to the caller's point earlier, like, what was the layout that actually provided the security level that should be there? And is this enough? There could have been motion sensors with lights that would have come on. You know, there are all types of security that we have in our immediate surrounding. Mm-hmm. Whereas, and it'll tell us exactly what's going on, and we can backtrack. And one of the other things that I really want New Orleans really to get better at, and maybe lead on more, is having more accessibility to cameras that are in a system that's integrated.
Yes.
They've been doing this overseas for years,
mm-hmm.
and we have really been behind as it relates to these types of things. And it's been proven, best practices, that it helps to solve crime. It helps to solve issues. If you have a person that's missing, you're able to track their movement. And so for us to have a facility that is a newly constructed facility and not have these layman
right.
type security, novice type security measures in place, I think that's not acceptable.
No, I don't think so. And Piper, one of the things that we just talked about, the sheriff's talked about, obviously there has been financial issues, okay? Mm-hmm. Fortunately, the millage passed a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
That's a $13 million a year issue, so that was very important. But there are financial issues to be able to have enough sheriffs, enough personnel mm-hmm. to be able to pay them mm-hmm. A decent wage, all of that. What you're talking about, and Kalish is mm-hmm. talking about, of some kind of system like this, really compensates for not having the personnel.
Correct.
Because when an alarm goes off, an alarm goes off.
Correct.
Everybody's running to the scene. And, to be honest, had an alarm gone off at any of those 4 points that I just referenced, I'm not sure any of those folks would have got across the interstate.
Exactly.
So, Piper, anything more you want to add?
Yeah, but one other thing. And then the other part is we saw bystander effect, and I'm assuming it's bystander effect because as those guys were crossing the interstate, there are cars going in both directions. And I can only assume each driver, like Arnie, if you and I are on the road, I'm assuming you're calling 911 because, hey, there's 8 guys crossing the road coming from the direction of the prison. And I'm thinking you're calling, you're thinking I'm calling. But because no one called the authorities to say, hey, there are 8 guys crossing the road, 2 o'clock in the morning, coming from the direction of the prison. And there was traffic. Wasn't heavy traffic, but there was traffic going in both directions from what we saw in the video. So even that part, as just regular citizens, that bystander effect was, for me, that was on display that morning as well. So there's a lot of things going on. But
I think there's
like
a lot
we have to get better. We have to get better as a community, and and we're stronger together. So let's just work it out.
You made an excellent point, and I think that the desensitization of things that have happened, it's not my problem. Somebody will call. I think that has happened, and a lot of people actually take a minute and say, do I really want to call? And on the other side, unfortunately, we've had so many reports and issues with the systems when reporting that they get discouraged. And so I do believe that we have a systematic issue that needs to be addressed. I do believe that those that are in office currently are aware of that issue, but I think we do have to have a conversation that's not one that's a siloed conversation, but one that actually crosses multi agencies. We've done this in the past
Yes, yes.
historically, and we've had great results from having multi agency, just a convening so that we can understand where you stop and where I start. To your point, the video capture of running across the interstate, we know that we have a Department of Transportation that actually monitors the interstate, and they have a full video office that sees traffic incidences, right? And so at some point, a person running across an interstate should bring up a red flag.
Yeah.
Something's wrong,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
someone should be notified that there are people running across an interstate. So there were many points of failure that occurred on that night, and I think that from the conversations, we have a great outline of issues in areas where we can provide efficiencies so that we can prevent and prepare to not have this happen again. So we're more often reacting than being proactive when it comes to operations for organizations within the community as well as our municipal and justice systems. And now is the time, instead of us pointing and playing the blame game on whose fault it was, now is the time to really come together and identify where we can get those individuals, get the decision makers in a room and have them look at what occurred and identify what solutions need to be put in place to make sure that this does not happen again.
Absolutely. Piper, I'm going to let you go. We're going to continue the discussion.
Okay.
Thanks for calling tonight.
All right.
Kalisha, just to follow up on the this aspect of it, okay? You talked about integration. It's one of the things in New Orleans that we don't do really well. We have different communication systems that are siloed. We have different groups here. Even how we're doing this investigation. There's 4 different investigations going on, okay? Again, maybe that's a great way to do it. I don't know. It seems to me it would be better to have one big one and somebody's the quarterback of the team. But we have every organization looking at different things right now. And you're right about other countries. I spent a fair amount of time in Israel. I'm going to tell you, in that country, when you have anything going on in one part of a country, they know about it immediately in another part. And they have to because of terrorism. We need to adopt that here, okay? It's just really ridiculous that probably the most important person that needed to know of this occurrence was the police chief, okay?
Correct. Yeah.
Because she didn't find out about this until I think 10 a.m., somewhere around there, 9:30.
And that's your force that would actually be out to
Trying
look
to find
for
the people.
the individuals to bring them to justice, and getting that information with regards to what they had on when they left, and what we see from the cameras of those that have been apprehended, they've changed, right? And so there are points in where there is clearly some assistance with regards to these escaped individuals and what they have been able to get access to. But if you cannot provide that information to the local police department in order for them to know who they're looking for to apprehend, we can't expect them to do that. And so, I think that, and look, I understand organizational leadership in each individual entity thinking that they know best within their organization. But when the issue is one that then causes a rift or has causality in another organization, then I think at that time they both should come to the table and have a comprehensive overview of what occurred, what each of us can do individually, and how we collectively can come together to provide assistance or a solution.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we have much to work on there.
Absolutely.
And, the good news is that I think what's happened here is opened some people's eyes.
Absolutely.
On a lot of different. I tell you, one area that I think a lot of people's eyes have been opened the last couple of days is not only the number of inmates that were in the jail, but how long they were there for, why they were there. the jail is supposed to be an interim transitory place.
Exactly.
Either because you are awaiting trial, potentially awaiting sentencing. Okay. It is not, it's not state prison.
Yeah.
It's not for people convicted. Well, here's where you're going to spend your time.
Correct.
And I think we've found out that a lot of those folks have been there longer than they should.
Absolutely.
And the longer they stay there, the more hardened they become. Okay. The more angry they are. So I think this whole system has to be looked at.
Absolutely.
Why is the state corrections, not talking every second with each of the local parish jails?
Right.
They said that this jail was built for 800. Council had a maximum of, I think, 1,250. And the best numbers is it approached 1,500 as Friday morning. All right. Well, that should be an alarm. That
That's a
should
red
be
flag.
going off where everybody should be concerned about that.
Absolutely. And when you look at a ratio, a work ratio, right, and you talk about systems where there may already be an issue of being understaffed, when you add on to that 2 times, 3 times the actual number of people that are obligated or under their job description to be able to take care of, right, or be responsible for, then where does that fault lie? At that point, I mean, the expectance of someone to be able to man and oversee 2 times the population that they are used to or are required to have, or with the equipment that they have the capacity to do, you're actually setting them up for failure. And so it only lends to something eventually is going to happen. And if individuals are staying in places for months and months at a time, they begin to take note of what a person is doing, right? They look at, they call case in the joint, right? They are actually looking at what happens during shift change. Where do they go? Again, they don't want to be housed in the facility that they are in. So what they have time to do is to determine where the weakness is and how they can effectively take advantage of that weakness. And so I think that what we've identified, and unfortunately having to still have these individuals still out in the community is causing fear that is toward fear. I mean, it's earned and it should be there. What we've identified is that there are multiple layers of issues that have to be addressed in order for us to safely house individuals during this period of time in this portion of their criminal justice interaction. And then from that, there has to be accountability on both sides. When are the cases coming to trial? When are they being scheduled through the judicial system? When are they being transported? How long should this take place? Because, again, historically, we have had individuals that may have been housed awaiting trial that may be found not guilty, right? And so at that point, you have the interruption in a life that really it's not repairable, and it causes them an issue with coming back as a returning citizen, and being productive. And so, like, all of those things are created within one system, and that one system has to include the efficiencies needed for operations, but also a process and an evaluation to ensure that it's systematically being successful in the goals that they have at mind. And if they're not, then at that point, it's time for you to reevaluate, look at best practices, understand what's happening in other systems, understand what's happening in other jurisdictions, and ask for help. And I do believe that the sheriff has went out and asked for help. So, again, I'm not pointing fingers at any one individual, more so looking at the fact that we have a systematic issue that needs a solution. And so we need to come around the table so that we can identify ways to move forward and not have this happen again.
Absolutely. And I think that's the bottom line, is just like we do with floods. When we have hurricanes, there's usually an after incident report and an investigation. I mean, this one needs to be fully vetted. It needs to be improved. We need to correct the problems that exist within the system.
Absolutely.
And, from the leadership standpoint, again, that'll take care of itself because we have elections coming up. And I assure you that the candidates for sheriff are not going to be shy about talking about what happened here. Let us come back in a minute. We're going to take a quick break, maybe finish on this topic. I've only got you for about 10 more minutes, so I want to hit a couple more topics with you.
Not a problem.
And we'll do that. Love to hear from you. 504-582-9422. Be back on just a minute.
Trying to grow your business or increase traffic to your location? We can help. WBOK 1230 AM has a number of solutions that will meet your individual needs. Give one of our consultants a call today at 504-582-9420 or email us at info@wbok1230.com. And remember, an investment with WBOK is an investment in our community. Call today.
New Orleans, are you ready? A fresh voice in the city is here, bringing you the beats, the culture, and the stories that matter. From local music and food to real talk on what's happening in the streets, we've got you covered. Stay tapped in. Follow us on all platforms at WBOK 1230 for the latest updates and exclusive content. Your city, your culture, your news. Don't just hear about it, be about it. Follow us at WBOK 1230 now.
I'm Grant Sasheret.
And I'm Ro Brown.
Please join us for the Sports Report, Wednesdays and Fridays.
At 8 p.m. on WBOK.
The Sports Report. WBOK 1230 AM.
Hey everybody, it's Graylin Bryant Banks.
And Kimber White Dupree.
From the front porch, y'all. You know how we do. Every Monday is Movie Monday.
And Tuesday is Trivia Tuesday.
And y'all know we have nothing but bad cheering coming through here on Wednesday.
But stick with us. On Thursday, we travel.
That's right. And Friday's Free Your Mind Friday, so get your brass up.
Something on your mind? Want to get it off your chest?
Holla at your people. WBOK 1230 AM, the station you listen to.
All day long.
I'm Wendell Pierce. Thanks for making WBOK your station. WBOK.
This is Arrington Gavin, and the Arrington Gavin Show is coming up next on WBOK.
The Arnie and Cary Show with Arnie Philco and Cary Grant.
All right, we are back. No Cary Grant tonight. Kalisha Garrett is here. My co-host. It's been fun. Hopefully you'll come back.
I will.
Just to finish this part of the discussion, one of the things that I think really bothered me today is let's go back just a few days. Let's go back to Thursday morning, okay? I think this community, if you would have asked and surveyed most people, they would say, crime is really down.
Yep.
We're doing so much better. Our violent crime is down. City compared to what it was a few years ago is a much safer city. And part of it is everybody's working together and doing their part. And then I hear a real bashing, not only against the sheriff, but the thing that really bothered me probably the most was the bashing against our district attorney. Again, a guy who admittedly is more progressive. That's how he campaigned. I will say, I think he's done a 180 on a lot of things in terms of that. But I don't think people understand people that commit crimes until they're convicted, okay? There is still a presumption of innocence in our country.
There is.
All right, which means that there's certain constitutional rights and protections that people have. The DA's job is to collect evidence and prosecute and then leave the let a jury or judge decide on that guilt. But there are limitations. What bothers me is all of a sudden, because of this incident, we're too soft on crime. We're too progressive. We're too liberal. This is ridiculous, okay? Honestly, I'm not an expert. I don't know the charge rate historically. I'm sure people can cite that. But at least from my standpoint of former elected official, just citizen right now, I think our district attorney has been doing a pretty darn good job.
I think the criminal justice system as a whole, they heard exactly what was impacting the community over the past few years. And there has been a significant decrease in crime. And there has been a significant increase in police presence. And that safety and security, the feeling, it is back. And we are doing a great job. And I agree with you on having a knee-jerk reaction as it relates to an issue that occurs and playing the blame game on one person or individual, that's not the way that we should be managing this situation. I do believe that DA has been doing a good job, and I also believe that we do have a constitutional right to go through the justice system as it is written. I mean, that's who we are as Americans. And if we can't hold to having due process and having everyone be able to have access to the same types of review as it relates to gathering evidence, being accused of a crime versus convicted of a crime, I do think that we still need to take the time that is allocated in order to identify those issues and circumstances. I do, however, believe that we can do better with open and effective communication between agencies. I do still think that there is a lag with information sharing, and so that too is causing some issues with regards to the time that people are being housed, which we talked about earlier, and the time to these cases being tried. But with that, I do believe that the team that's working with the district attorney's office, they are doing a stellar job, and they are identifying the information that is needed, and they're putting together their strongest case, because then too, you don't want to go too early. You don't want to not be able to review everything and bring the best case to present to that judge or jury in order to try the individual and to allow them to be tried with the jury of their peers.
Yes.
And be found innocent or guilty.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the path that he's done that historically. He is who he is, and I do believe that we should not look so much to blame individuals as we should be identifying what happened to break down in the system and how we can fix that.
We have very short memories. I remember post Katrina, you know, when people were marching on City Hall, when silence is violence.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
I remember
Chaining.
just a few years ago. I mean, people were outraged over the carjackings, the murder, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we've turned a significant corner. It doesn't mean we're perfect. There's mistakes that get made, but I do think we need to step back a little bit, and before we start throwing everything out
under
here,
the bus.
Yeah, I mean, that just to me, that's pure politics and grandstanding. It's not really helping, solve the situation. Kalisha, I want to talk to you about something that is near and dear to your heart, because you have worked your entire life as we started creating opportunities for people. The attack going on both federally and now at the state level on DEI, is hard to understand. I mean, just go back a couple months ago when you had the airplane crash in Washington. Literally, the first thing out of people's mouths was, "Well, it was caused because of DEI."
Yeah,
and it was like, "Whoa, are you kidding me?" Just talk about this. First of all, explain what DEI is, because I think most people don't even know.
Exactly. So when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is not race specific, first off. And when we're looking at having a diverse background, it can mean in age, race, experience, social background, economic background, and capabilities in language. Diversity is what makes this world go around. If we sat around and we had everyone that thought the same, that looked the same, that had the same experience and background and had the same accessibility, we would not have any place that had vision or growth. It would be stagnant. And so when you talk about diversity, diversity goes across many barriers. Your equity is having access on an equal level that is equitable. Not just because we can go to a school, we have the same types of abilities to learn within the school. Not because we can have access to a job, we have the same access and the instruments and the tools that we need to do the job. And inclusion is across board. If you exclude individuals who then pay into what you are using for the community, how do you explain that my dollar is good enough to pay taxes to go in to fix the road, but my business is not good enough to respond to an RFP to work on the construction of said road, right? So when we're looking at it from a holistic standpoint, this is not, it's when they have conversations, they turn it into a race conversation. And oftentimes, and I tell people when we have these panels and speak about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then look at disadvantaged business enterprises, and they use these words interchangeably, we have many organizations that have certifications for business and industry according to X, whether X is women business enterprises, minority business enterprises, disadvantaged business enterprises, or LGBTQ plus, or Hispanic, or Asian. There are certain classifications in which businesses join a membership organization and they talk about the experience in situations that are impacting their industry or organization. It's the same thing likened to having a bar association, an engineers association, or a contractors association. But we don't see laws or conversations around stopping the contractors association or stopping the builders association or the rail workers association. That is what we are boiling down to when we say we're talking about DEI. Now, from what was introduced, and I've glanced over what they presented, but this is my conversation back as it relates to DEI and state
You're
and
talking
impact.
about the bill by Representative Chernivert.
Correct.
Okay.
So as it relates to Louisiana, and I've been working hand in hand over a few administrations with regards to economic inclusion for small businesses across the state with access to contracts and procurement opportunities. As a state, we did not have a DBE policy for state contracts, and I'm air quoting. We had a DBE policy for federal contracts that went from federal dollars that are dispensed from the Department of Transportation to the Department of Transportation and Development here in Louisiana. Other than that, there were some initiatives, the Hudson Initiative, the Veteran Initiative, that received points when including those types of businesses on contracts. But there were not goals associated with that. So the conversation is one that they are putting many different avenues, different things into one paragraph when these things are not the same. And that's an issue that I really would like for people to take a step back. And again, this 15 seconds of I want to have a sound bite and say that I'm going after DEI when you don't know what DEI is.
Right. Well, and that's
Period.
a sad thing that people are voting on these things.
Yeah.
They truly don't know. Okay. They don't have a full understanding.
And they come back and it's like, oh, HR or access to school programs or access to any type of assistance that's there. All of these programs were constructed with groups of individuals that looked at best practices and understood how it would impact the individuals that would participate. The second part of that is there are rules and responsibilities as it relates to how you are able to obtain said grant or access. And so for someone to just throw it into one bill and say, oh, we want to remove it from all language, from this or that, tell me what language it was in and what that impact was.
Well, I don't have a whole lot of hope in Baton Rouge. There are a lot of people that are not in support of this. So we'll, another one of those bills for us to keep monitoring.
Yeah.
Kalisha, thank you so much for joining tonight.
Not
it's been
a problem.
a privilege, and you have such great insight in so many areas. Hopefully you'll come back.
Absolutely.
And we will be back tomorrow night with Elevated Conversations, trying to elevate the discussion on different things. Cary will be back in town, I think, on Thursday. So we got a lot to talk about in New Orleans. Everybody have a great evening, and we will see you at 6 o'clock tomorrow night here.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.